Meet Kyle, 26 years old, makes $52,000 a year. Not a high earner, but not struggling either, somewhere in the solid middle, where most people live their entire financial lives without ever quite getting ahead. 8 months ago, Kyle decided to get serious. He set up a budget. He automated $300 a month into savings. He canceled 2 streaming services, stopped buying lunch at work, and started tracking every purchase in a notes app on his phone, like a man who had genuinely decided to change something. 8 months later, Kyle opens his savings account and looks at the balance. $2,240. He stares at it, does the math. 8 months of discipline, sacrifice, and saying no to things he actually wanted, and the number is $2,240. At this rate, it will take him roughly 7 more years to save $30,000. 7 years, he'll be 33. His car will probably need replacing twice before he gets there. Kyle is not doing anything wrong. Kyle is doing everything right. The problem is that Kyle is operating in the part of the savings journey where the math works against you, where almost all of the progress is yours to push manually, where compound interest is barely showing up to help, and where the gap between the effort and the visible result is so wide that quitting feels completely rational. What Kyle doesn't know, what almost nobody tells you before you get there, is that there is a specific dollar amount where this entire experience changes. Not gradually, not eventually. At a specific threshold, the equation flips. The hill you've been pushing up stops getting steeper and starts getting easier. The math that was working against you starts working for you. And the number is not $100,000. It's not $50,000. It's not even the first $10,000 that most people celebrate. It's $20,000. And the reason almost nobody talks about it is that almost nobody understands why it's this number specifically and not some other number, why $20,000 is the threshold where something real and measurable changes, rather than just another arbitrary savings milestone on an infinite road. My name is Nick, and I've spent an unreasonable amount of time studying what actually happens mathematically, psychologically, and practically at different points on the wealth building journey. And the $20,000 threshold is the most underrated inflection point in all of personal finance. If you're somewhere on the road to it, below it, or wondering why your effort isn't translating into visible results, yet stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why $20,000 is the number that changes everything, what specifically changes when you cross it, and how to get there faster than Kyle's current math suggests is possible. Let's start with why the feeling of invisible progress below $20,000 is not a perception problem. It is a math problem. Here's the honest truth about compound interest that nobody puts in the headline. Compound interest is extraordinarily powerful. It is also extraordinarily slow to start. In the early stages of wealth building, before you have a meaningful base of invested money, the returns your investments generate are so small in dollar terms that they barely register against your own contributions. You are doing almost all of the work. The math is barely helping. Let's make this concrete. Say you're saving and investing $500 a month at an 8% annual return. In month 1, your investment earns about $3.30 in returns. $3.30. Meanwhile, you contributed $500. You did 99% of the work. The compound interest contribution is statistical noise. In month 6, your total balance is around $3,100, and your monthly return is roughly $20. Still doing 96% of the work yourself. This is why it feels like pushing uphill, because it is pushing uphill. The returns are real, but they're invisible at this scale. You're saving $500 and earning $20, and the $20 feels like nothing, because relative to your contribution, it is almost nothing. Now here's where the $20,000 threshold enters the picture. At $20,000 invested at 8% annual return, your portfolio generates approximately $1.600 a year in returns, or about $133 a month. If you're still contributing $500 a month, your money is now contributing $133 alongside you. That's not nothing. That's 21% of your monthly progress happening automatically without any additional effort from you. The ratio has shifted. You did the work to get to $20,000, and now $20,000 is doing work back. More importantly, and this is the part that changes the entire experience of saving, the returns become visible. $133 a month is something you can see on a statement. It's something that registers as real progress. Before $20,000, the compound interest contribution was statistical noise. After $20,000, it starts showing up as something you can actually watch grow. The researchers who study this call it the visibility threshold, the point at which investment returns become large enough in dollar terms to be psychologically reinforcing rather than essentially invisible. And for most people saving a reasonable monthly amount, that visibility threshold falls right around $20,000. Before it, you have to believe in compound interest as an abstract future concept. After it, you can see compound interest working in your account right now. That shift from abstract belief to visible evidence is worth more than most people understand, because it changes not just how your money grows, but how you relate to the entire process of growing it. Which brings us to the first of 5 changes that happen when you cross $20,000. And this one happens in your brain. Change 1: your brain gets out of survival mode. There's a landmark study from Princeton that I've referenced before because it's one of the most important findings in behavioral economics. Researchers asked shoppers at a mall to imagine an unexpected car repair. For half of them, the repair cost $150. For the other half, it cost $1,500. Then, everyone took a standard cognitive test measuring problem-solving ability. The wealthier shoppers showed no difference between the two groups, but the lower-income shoppers who had to imagine the $1,500 repair scored dramatically lower, roughly 1 full standard deviation below their baseline. Same people, same brains. The only variable was 30 seconds of imagining a financial problem they couldn't easily cover. The researchers described the effect as comparable to losing a full night of sleep, and they noted that for people living paycheck to paycheck, this level of financial cognitive load isn't a one-time experiment, it's the permanent background condition of daily life. $20,000 is the number that ends that background condition for most people. Not because $20,000 makes you rich, but because $20,000, specifically when structured as 3 to 6 months of living expenses and an accessible savings account, removes the low-grade financial emergency calculation that your brain runs continuously when the buffer doesn't exist. When your brain is no longer running that calculation, it has cognitive bandwidth available for things it couldn't fully access before. Growth thinking instead of survival thinking. Long-term planning instead of short-term crisis management. Opportunity recognition instead of threat detection. The same brain, the same intelligence. The same person operating at a measurably higher level simply because the financial static has been removed. This is not a metaphor. This is a documented, measurable cognitive shift that happens when the financial buffer crosses the threshold where emergencies stop being existential and start being inconvenient. Change 2: your career gets a secret upgrade. This is the change most people don't see coming. And it's worth more than the $20,000 itself. When you have no savings buffer, your relationship with your employer is fundamentally one of dependence. You need the next paycheck to function. You need this specific job to keep the specific income that covers the specific bills that are due on specific dates. Your negotiating position, whether you ever think about it in those terms or not, is weak. You are negotiating from necessity, not from choice. This shows up in ways most people never consciously connect to their savings balance. You don't push back on unreasonable requests because you need the job more than the job needs you. You don't ask for the raise because you're afraid of the conversation that might go wrong. You don't explore other opportunities because taking time off for interviews feels too risky when the safety margin is zero. $20,000 changes the entire dynamic, not because you're suddenly rich, because you have what behavioral economists call a credible outside option, the knowledge, even if you never act on it, that you could walk away and survive while you found something else. You could cover 3 to 6 months of expenses without a paycheck. You could take the risk of the honest conversation. You could explore without the desperation that makes exploration feel dangerous. Here's what's counterintuitive about this shift. You don't actually need to use the outside option for it to work. You just need to have it. Because having it changes your posture, your tone, your willingness to advocate for yourself, and your threshold for what you'll accept. And people respond to that change without knowing why. Managers negotiate differently with someone who doesn't seem afraid. Interviewers respond differently to someone who seems to have choices. The $20,000 isn't just sitting in an account earning interest. It's working in every professional interaction you have, invisibly, silently, changing the balance of power in your favor without anyone knowing the mechanism. Change 3: your relationship with opportunity changes. Below $20,000, every unexpected expense is a threat. Your car breaks down crisis. Your laptop dies crisis. Your landlord raises the rent crisis. Your dog needs an emergency vet visit crisis. Each of these events doesn't just cost money. It costs cognitive bandwidth, emotional energy, relationship capital if you need to borrow, and time spent on financial triage that could have gone somewhere else. Above $20,000, these same events become inconveniences. Not pleasant, not welcome, but containable. You handle them, you absorb the cost, you move on without the 4-day excavation project that used to follow every unexpected bill. The event itself is the same. What changes is its blast radius. But here's the less obvious half of this change. Below $20,000, opportunities look like risks. Your friend mentions they're starting a business and looking for a small investment, you can't even consider it. A rental property comes up at a good price, you can't run the numbers, because the down payment is simply not a conversation you can have. A career opportunity requires you to take an unpaid certification course impossible when the margin is zero. Above $20,000, the same opportunities start looking like opportunities again. Not because you suddenly have unlimited resources, because the base of financial stability is solid enough that your brain can evaluate a potential upside without immediately short-circuiting into survival mode. You can say yes to some things. You can consider options. You can take small calculated risks without risking everything. This is what wealthy people mean when they say money makes money. It is not a cosmic conspiracy where the universe rewards existing wealth. It is that having a financial base changes the set of options available to you and changes your brain's ability to recognize and act on them. Change 4. Your spending psychology inverts. This one surprises people. When you have nothing saved, you obsess over small purchases. Should I buy the name brand or generic? Is the $4 coffee worth it? Can I justify this $30 purchase? Every small spending decision carries weight because every dollar feels precious, and the margin for error feels zero. Above $20,000, something counterintuitive happens. You stop caring about the small decisions and start caring about the large ones. Not because you become careless, because your brain recalibrates what actually matters to your financial outcome. The difference between buying the name brand cereal and the generic version is roughly $500 a year if you're being dramatic about it. The difference between a smart and a poor decision on your housing costs is potentially $20,000 over a decade. The difference between a well-negotiated salary and an under-negotiated one compounds over an entire career. The difference between starting to invest at 25 versus 35 in dollar terms at retirement can easily exceed $500,000. Below $20,000, your brain's threat detection system is calibrated to small numbers because small numbers feel existential. Above $20,000, the threat detection system recalibrates to the decisions that actually determine your financial trajectory. The $4 coffee stops feeling like a moral test and starts feeling like what it actually is, a negligible variable in a much larger equation. And the large variables housing, career, investment timing, lifestyle creep get the attention they actually deserve. This recalibration is not just psychologically pleasant, it is financially superior. Because the people who obsess over the $4 coffee while ignoring the $400 monthly car payment upgrade are optimizing the wrong variable. And the people who stopped obsessing over the $4 coffee are often the ones who found an extra $400 a month for investments, because they were finally paying attention to the numbers that actually move the needle. Change 5, the compounding acceleration, becomes real. We talked about the math at the beginning, how $20,000 generating $133 a month in returns shifts the ratio of your work to money's work from 99:1 towards something more like 79:21. But the real magic of this shift isn't the $133 itself. It's what that $133 produces over time, because that $133 gets invested, and it generates its own returns, and those returns get invested, and the acceleration that felt theoretical below $20,000 starts becoming viscerally, visibly, undeniably real above it. Let's track Kyle specifically. If Kyle hits $20,000 and keeps contributing $500 a month at 8% returns, his second $20,000 arrives faster than his first. Significantly faster. His third $20,000 arrives faster than his second. By the time Kyle is working toward his fourth $20,000, his portfolio is generating roughly $400 a month on its own, almost matching his $500 monthly contribution. He's doing half the work he used to do for the same progress. This is the snowball effect that every personal finance book mentions, and almost none of them make feel real. But at $20,000, it stops being a concept and starts being something you can watch happening in your account. The returns on returns on returns begin generating enough dollar volume to be visible on a monthly statement. And that visibility, that evidence that the machine is running, is one of the most powerful behavioral reinforcers in personal finance, because you stop saving out of discipline and start saving because you can see what happens when you add fuel to a machine that is already running. Quick note here, because the process I use to research, structure, and write content like this is something a lot of people ask me about. Taking dense financial research and turning it into something people actually watch and understand is a skill, and it's exactly what we teach in our community for people building faceless finance channels. If that's something you've been thinking about, the link is in the description. No pressure. Now back to Kyle and the most important part of this entire conversation. Here's the mistake, and it's the mistake that undoes everything we just talked about for a significant percentage of people who successfully reach the $20,000 threshold. They spend it. Not all at once, not recklessly. But the moment the account hits $20,000, the moment the number that felt impossible for so long is finally sitting there, the sudden permission slip activates. The vacation that was deferred, the car upgrade that was earned, the home improvement that was waiting, the investment opportunity that seemed too good to miss, and the $20,000 that took years of discipline and sacrifice to build gets spent back down to $8,000 or $5,000, or sometimes zero, in a compressed spending window that feels completely justified because they earned it. Here's why this is the most expensive mistake in personal finance. The $20,000 is not the destination. It is the starting line of a completely different phase of wealth building. Spending it doesn't just cost you the $20,000. It costs you the compounding acceleration that the $20,000 was about to generate. It costs you the cognitive shift. It costs you the career leverage. It costs you the opportunity recognition. It resets you to Kyle in month 1, pushing uphill with no machine running behind you, doing 100% of the work yourself. The $20,000 rule is simple. Get there. Stay there. Let the machine run. So how do you get there from wherever you are right now? First, calculate the specific number. For most people, $20,000 represents 3 to 6 months of true living expenses, the number we calculated in the emergency fund framework. If $20,000 is more than 6 months of your expenses, your personal threshold might be lower. If it's less than 3 months, you might need to push toward $25,000 or $30,000. But for most people earning between $40,000 and $80,000 a year in a medium cost of living area, $20,000 is the threshold where the shifts we discussed become real. Second, treat it as a sprint, not a lifestyle change. The research on goal completion consistently shows that defined endpoints produce dramatically higher completion rates than open-ended habits. Don't tell yourself I'm going to be a better saver. Tell yourself I am going to reach $20,000 by a specific date, and then I am going to protect that number. The sprint framing works because it has a finish line, a timeline, and a moment where you either did it or you didn't. Third, automate aggressively during the sprint. Every dollar that moves automatically to savings before you see it in your checking account is a dollar that bypasses every competing priority, every bad week, and every moment where discipline would have failed. The automation is not a convenience. It is the mechanism. During the sprint to $20,000, your automatic transfer should be set as high as you can sustain without causing problems in your checking account. Fourth, find the sprint injections, the subscription audit, the one-time sales, the extra income source for 60 to 90 days. These aren't permanent lifestyle changes. They're targeted contributions that accelerate the timeline and get you to the threshold faster, so the machine starts running sooner. And fifth, the most important instruction in this entire video: when you hit the number, do not move it. Name the account. Put it somewhere slightly inconvenient to access. Define what counts as an emergency before you need to make that call under pressure. Because the $20,000 working for you for a decade is worth dramatically more than the $20,000 spent on things that feel earned in the moment. Kyle hit $20,000 11 months after he started his sprint. Not 7 years, 11 months. He found $180 a month in canceled subscriptions. He sold $600 worth of things he didn't use. He picked up 4 weekend shifts over 2 months, and he increased his automatic transfer from $300 to $450 after getting a small raise he would not have asked for before he had the outside option that $14,000 in savings gave him. His account now sits at $27,000. His portfolio generated $1,800 in returns last year without him doing anything. He still works the same job. He earns roughly the same income, but the math is working for him now instead of against him. He can feel the difference. And he wishes the way everyone who gets to the other side of this number wishes that someone had explained the rule to him before he spent 4 years feeling like the effort wasn't going anywhere. Now you know the rule. The only question is when you start the sprint. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. It's just the math and the psychology I wish someone had explained to me back when I was Kyle grinding through month 8 of saving $300 a month and wondering if the machine was ever actually going to start running. It does, at $20,000, and it changes everything. If this landed for you, drop a comment telling me where you are on the journey, how far from the $20,000 threshold, or how far past it. I read every single one. And if you want to understand what happens at the next major threshold, after $20,000, the one where the machine really starts running without you, that video is right there on the screen. Go watch that one next. I'll see you in it.